I played Phantom Blade Zero, developer S-Game's upcoming action game at Gamescom for 3 whole hours on the hardest difficulty, Hellwalker. And as the resident combat guy, I learned a lot. Let's talk about it. So let's first talk about the most important gauge, Sha Qi, and how its economy works, because this is not your typical stamina or posture gauge. The first thing is that if you get hit and it's reduced to 0, your guard breaks and you're stunned. Opening yourself to attack, it's what you'd expect. The second thing is that this affects your choice between light and heavy attacks, as light attacks don't break the enemy's Sha Qi as well as your heavy attacks, but light attacks also have the benefit of switching to blocking very quickly. Heavy attacks alone or mid-combo break the enemy's Sha Qi gauge more, but also consume your own Sha Qi, and are often slower and more punishable. Because Sha Qi is drained from getting hit as well, and is a part of your own stagger resistance, abusing heavy attacks can quickly snowball your defense into a really dangerous situation. So let's talk about your defense. The blocking system is something akin to Sekiro, with the initial frames of holding being a parry, but holding it down fully initiates blocking. Parrying will negate Sha Qi loss, but blocking will slightly drain the Sha Qi gauge once struck. Dodging is not tied to Sha Qi, but you can be clipped at the tail end of the dodge like most other games, and also has a cooldown if you spam it. You should also know that switching weapons also partially refills the gauge, incentivizing you to switch equipment throughout the fight. During combat, you'll also come across signaled blue attacks that can be countered with parries, and red unblockable attacks that can be countered with dodges. These will refill your gauge and heavily damage theirs. Countering these special attacks felt great and had a very clear response. But I think my biggest critique so far is parrying and blocking standard attacks. These incoming attacks had barely any difference in visual or audio feel between what was blocked or parried, which led to general defense feeling somewhat muted and unresponsive. Given that blocking is like half the game, I'm a little worried about this, but maybe something in the full release will change my mind. Weapon selection, on the other hand, was a really nice highlight in the demo I played. With over 30 weapons, each one is totally unique, all with different attributes, power surge specials, and button combinations that give each one its own character. Juggernaut, for example, a huge two-handed sword, fills a revenge meter every time you parry, and unleashes a huge horizontal swing, great for dealing with multiple enemies. Seamless Death was my personal favorite, with the ability to launch a flurry of projectiles from a distance, and a special fully invincible dodge. Some weapons have alternate parries, deflect specific attacks, and some cause status effects like bleed. The variety of weapons are collected from bosses, with many of them being optional, giving you incentive to go explore every nook and cranny to hunt down and acquire weapons with special skills. Finally, in your arsenal, you have Shadow Edges, a powerful attack that uses limited resources that are recharged at every checkpoint. These attacks are often slow but very powerful, and come with the added benefit that they reduce incoming damage and give the player super armor to power through enemy attacks. My personal favorite was the Flaming Mane, which lets you throw flames in a wide area while slowly lion dancing towards your opponent. So cool. Another small wrinkle of combat includes multi-finishers pulled straight out of Ghost of Tsushima. These can be triggered by sneak attacks, exactly like Ghost, but also can be performed mid-combat with multiple finishable enemies. I don't know why, but I'm a sucker for these chain finishers and I never got tired of them. The final thing to bring up is the Hellwalker difficulty itself. I don't know how to describe it, but this difficulty, which is only available on New Game Plus, is both easy and hard at the same time. It's very hard to grasp the feeling of it. The easy part is you're still very tanky in Hellwalker, and you take a surprising amount of hits before going down. And the fact that this is not your typical Souls-like and enemies are permanently killed even after resting definitely changes the strategy and stakes of combat. The tougher part is enemies are more aggressive, have new moves, and according to the devs, the AI are more reactive and change tactics depending on how you play. I definitely noticed the aggression turned up across the board. That was pretty clear after opponents peppered me with a constant string of attacks back to back to back with no breathing room in between, especially with multiple opponents. The AI learning portion, on the other hand, was a little harder to notice, because it just seemed like your standard decent CPU opponent that's not really different from any other game. The one example that really stood out to me though is against the final mini-boss of the demo, where I'd parry its attack and retaliate. After doing it a couple times, it started to go directly into a counter stance right after I parried, which forced me to change up my strategy. I feel like this demo and these enemies were too small of a slice of the game to understand Phantom Blade Zero's AI system, so I'll circle back on this once we get the game in our hands. Phantom Blade Zero is one of my most highly anticipated games, and while I'm excited to get my hands fully on it, I'm also eager to watch other people tackle the game in different ways when the game fully launches. Hopefully, sooner than later.